Well, thank you very much for coming, everybody, and a big welcome to Millfield this evening for our introduction to careers and higher education at Millfield School. I want to introduce myself and my team to start with. So, my name's James Brittain. I look after the Department of Higher Education and Careers, and my team, the second in charge, is Mrs. Harms, Emily Harms, who looks after the alternatives to university. So my role, most of my time, is spent looking at universities in the UK, but she looks at the alternative. Then we have Dr. Pringle, Abby Pringle, who was a research fellow at St John's College, Oxford, and she also did some admissions for psychology. She's here as a psychology teacher, so we're very lucky to have her. And she looks after not just Oxbridge, but she looks after top universities as well. And she makes sure that that application is extra sparkly, has that extra touch required by the top, most popular universities in the country. And my colleague Linda Nixon, who used to be assistant head and head of sixth form at a state boarding school down the road, which is Sexy School in Bruton, and she has joined us as the head of the applications to American universities and Canadian universities as well, and more about that in a moment. We're very lucky to have our head of science, Ruth Landrigan, who coordinates the SAT teaching. That's the standardized aptitude test to get into American universities. So she coordinates the teaching as well as the exams, which we take the actual test here at Millfield, so she organizes all of that. And then lastly, Mrs. Hicks-Keeley, who is the person that your sons and daughters see when they come to careers. She makes all the appointments for people, and she sorts out a lot of their issues. Her job before that was working for local government and the civil service in terms of trying to get young people into employment. So she's, again, very experienced, and we're very lucky to have her. So that's the team. And I think, personally, I'm biased, but it's the best job in the school that we have in careers. We work one-to-one with a lot of your sons and daughters. They come to us saying, I really don't know what to do with my life. I really don't know what subjects I should be studying at university. Or maybe in year 9, I don't know what GCSEs I want to study. Or maybe the year 11s are saying they don't know what A-levels they want to study. So it's a great chance really just to have a chat with them. We actually start in Millfield Prep School in year 7, where we have a careers afternoon, and we have parents who do role plays as to what a doctor does and what a lawyer does and what an engineer does. And they do something called Fast Tomato, which is a very basic entry-level system looking at different careers and abilities and aptitudes, and that then follows on to basic videos about what a teacher's life is like, for example. And so we do try and start them very young, so it goes all the way through the school. But yes, it's tough, isn't it, making those choices. So we help our pupils here from year 9 to 11 in terms of doing a Moresby assessment of their abilities and their aspirations, which then produces a report and then leads on to a one-to-one careers interview. Your sons and daughters might have done this if they have been in year 11 already. When it was called FutureWise, they would have had their FutureWise assessment, and we have copies of that if you would like to have another look at that. And that then led to a one-to-one chat with a careers advisor, outside careers advisor from school. And then in the sixth form, we have had something similar called the centigrade assessment, which is really not just focusing on careers, like the FutureWise did, but a lot more in terms of universities and what courses might be suitable for them. So that's a couple of ideas as how we try and find the very scary answer to those questions. What would they like to do with their lives? And I get more cues of people asking this question just before they have to go away on holiday for half term, as if this is what they're going to face when they get home, is questions about, so what are you going to do with your life? Here's another scary face for you. This is Timothy Spall, who you might know played Mr. Turner, and more recently the painter L.S. Lowry. And he's just been in the press this week talking about how he really, when he was at school, wanted to be in the armed forces, or else he wanted to be a painter. And of course he turned out to be an actor. But more recently he's said that with his painting experience, he had to do quite a lot of painting to do those roles, those last two film roles, and he's decided that he wants to give it a go and be a painter. So he's had a few exhibitions. Of course, he is listening out to his friends who say, "Tim, you just want to stick to the acting, you know, instead of being a full-time painter." But a lovely example there of an adult, and to say to our children, really, it is okay that you don't know what you want to do. It's absolutely fine. And a lot of adults don't really know also what they want to do. I'm asked to link in with a lot of pupils after they've left Millfield. They're building up a LinkedIn profile, and they asked me to link to them. And looking back at those pupils that left Millfield now over a long period of time, their turnover of jobs is incredible. They don't stick with one job like we might have done in our generation for very long. And they're switching industries, they're switching jobs, they're going from big business to small, and going to all sorts of organizations. So it's a different world out there, as I'm sure they're constantly being told. So I'd like to illustrate for you a little bit of data. We have all these spreadsheets of what people do when they leave Millfield and go on to university. And I've picked 30 here. I tried to get a really good spread for you, and I just want to show you the first one, and after that I'll put it on a loop so you can see them all one after the other. But at the very top there, it'll show the course. I put them in alphabetical order for you. I try and do a different course on each slide, and I show then the university. So Exeter University, excellent, Russell Group University, and each slide is a pupil who got a place in the last round of leavers. So we count the leavers, we don't count the OMs who come back to us and reapply in the gap year. This is just the people who got places when they left, and they achieved more than the grades that were required, 2 grades above, which is excellent. If you look carefully at the slides that follow, some of them will show that they got grades less than what was required, but they still got in. That's useful to see. We keep a record of all of these. Also, you might see that some of them got an unconditional offer. That's useful to see, because we try and keep an eye on the people who have unconditional offers just to check that they're not stopping working at school, because A-levels, we tell them, are always on your CV, and they're always very important to do well in. And then the last thing you might see, I think there might be one in there that has clearing, which was a clearing accept. In other words, it wasn't their first choice necessarily, but it was one that they found and were matched up with in clearing. So I will put this on now and see if this works, and we might take questions if you've got any questions at the end, but I've tried to make a whole variety of different courses, so let's have a look. Okay, well I hope that showed you the wide variety of courses that our Millfield pupils apply for. And I think some of those, the grades will have looked quite low to some of you. What I would say is that it doesn't include other things that they're doing at Millfield, clearly, like their sport, but also like a vocational course like Leiths, or British horse riding, or their music grades, or their drama, or their other things. The whole gamut of other things at Millfield, of course, is not included in there. And there might have been low grades for things like Istituto Marangoni, which is an excellent fashion and arts university, who are highly selective. The fact that they took a pupil with low grades, I think, showed that they might have had a good portfolio, or they interviewed very well. So there are lots of other factors than just grades to look at there. And I think the other thing to think about is that every year the year group changes. And I'm told by our admissions people that year 9, 10 and 11 at Millfield have the best results, very strong academically, than we've had in the last 20 or so years. So when they come through, we will be telling a very different story here. However, I thought it might be quite good to have a look then at the most popular destinations then, because I only picked one of each there, whereas these are our top 25, I think, of our leavers that went off to university in 2019. So a really good mixture there of different Russell group and non-Russell group. I maybe just want to explain that to you, anybody who's unsure about this, because the pupils do ask me sometimes, or they say, sir, I want to go to a good university. And I say, well, there's no such thing as a good university. There's only really a university that's right for you. So we end up having this discussion about academic versus non-academic. And I think Bath University, for example, might be a surprise for some of you, is not a Russell Group university because it doesn't have the big city research grants that maybe a Birmingham or a Manchester or a Liverpool or a Leeds might have. So, of course, we like our pupils to go to Russell Group, but there are excellent universities like Bath, like Loughborough, St Andrews, fantastic universities, East Anglia out there, that are top-rated universities, but are not in the Russell Group just because they don't have the research size and they didn't meet up in Russell Hotel in Russell Square all that time ago when the group met and decided to call themselves the Russell Group. So I understand that pupils do like to see these highly selective universities on their CVs. However, I am very pleased every year to find the variety of universities that they do end up going to. Because partly it means that they've looked at the best university for that course, not just the best university in a particular set of rankings, of which there are several. So yes, here's B to E, is it? Yes. So the first lot of universities there. Whole variety of different shapes and sizes. And the next lot from Falmouth downwards. Falmouth, the very artsy university, shared with Exeter, right down the end in the south-west of the UK. You've got the Mets and the actual, so Manchester Met versus Manchester University. Manchester Met being a lot more vocational, does more of the business studies and the media rather than physics, maths, history. Nottingham Trent, very creative as well. Nottingham University, really popular at Millfield. Oxford Brookes, slightly less nowadays, but used to be really popular. So Reading, Royal Holloway, Sussex, for example, really upcoming universities that you can get into with reasonable grades for a fantastic academic and top 30 university experience. All the way down to University of the Arts in London, so the Central St Martin's and the other parts, Camberwell and the London College of Fashion, all those parts of UAL there. So great to see the variety, and another 36 universities on top of that our pupils choose to go to. And it's great when I go on conferences and I say to my opposite numbers, how are things? And they say, well, yes, we quite successful with the universities that our guys apply to. And they're applying to between 8 and 10 different universities. We apply to 65 or 70 different universities every year. 79 pupils into Russell Group so far. That's going up a little bit over time as they get in through clearing or their places are confirmed, and that's great to see. That's just our leavers from this year. Obviously, we have post-results applicants as well that boost that number quite a bit. And 24 into North American universities, Canadian and American universities, is a small number for us. We normally get closer to 30, but as I say, the year groups change from year to year. So I wanted to just spend a brief time talking about North American provision. My colleague Linda Nixon is the expert, but suffice to say that we do have an excellent SAT program here, which runs from October to October. We give the lower six some time to settle in with their A-levels and their pre-U's and their BTECs before they start. And then after half term, we start the math and the English SAT teaching to prepare them for that. And every few weeks they'll have, I think it's every half term, they do a serious assessment practice, which is like a mock exam, so they know exactly where their scores are and whether those scores are appropriate for their university choices in America. So we keep that quite tightly controlled. The exams are taken at Millfield, which our pupils like, because they've got the home advantage, I suppose, and they get a little bit more time in bed that Saturday morning. And we have tutors in school that are very experienced. The head of maths SAT used to teach in America, and the head of the English side, there are two teachers on the English side, used to teach in Chicago. So they're very familiar with what's required by the SAT across the other side of the pond. And we have the most wonderful exchange with Virginian fellows from the University of West Virginia. We have a different one every year, and they are invariably excellent role models from their university, and they come over and have a lovely time here at Millfield. And they are the real McCoy, complete with an American accent. So they seem to be absolutely the bee's knees, and they certainly know their stuff, having just been through that experience themselves. And we back all this up with actually bringing in the universities, which is great as well, and we host American conferences here. It's an advantage of being a big school. There are disadvantages, but one of the advantages is that we draw in universities who come and visit us, which makes it different to having to go around on all the open days. So, moving on, applications to what we call top UK universities. So we have Dr. Abby Pringle, who I've mentioned already, who is our head on that side of all applications to very competitive entry universities. And alongside the subject mentors that she chooses to prepare people for their subject tests, for Oxbridge particularly, she will work with them, and we have regular Oxbridge seminars and tutorials, putting in the most academic from each year group together to debate topics. And they'll be fed a bit of information and see if they change their minds, or they can actually go back on what they've said and come in with a fresh argument and see how they interact with other people. Yeah, we get quite a few who don't want to apply to Oxbridge but just love being in those seminars. So sometimes we get those students joining in as well, which is excellent to see. Obviously, we give them the interview practice. We give them the holiday reading and preparation for the PAT and the thinking skills and the UCAT and other things. And in year 11, we take it alternately. We do trips to Oxford and Cambridge just to show the pupils that really there's nothing, impossible about getting into these places. These are not the exclusive ivory towers that you think they are. Have a go. That's what we always encourage pupils to do. Then, of course, we have our healthcare applications. And again, I'm very pleased that we have a couple of people who are very experienced at doing this, as I can't be a specialist in every area. I wouldn't pretend to be at all. But Miss Wheel has been working on this in this area for a long time with the medics, potential medics, the dentists, and the vets. She has, I'm told, in the back of her car, a shovel and a large rubble sack. And every now and then she will stop when she sees roadkill by the side of the road, shovel it up into her bag, put it in the freezer at Millfield, and that'll be part of her dissection club in the future. So we do encourage our pupils to hold their noses and get into that wonderful experience of dissection. And she advises them about the volunteering. She advises them about the what's required and the work experience. She will help them get work experience locally at one of the local hospitals around here, and to tick those boxes and jump over those hurdles as required by a very competitive application. So I've mentioned about the dissection club. I love it when the pupils say, I enjoyed it so much that I took it for a second time the next term. It's just a club at Millfield. But then they became the authority on actually teaching pupils what was what when looking at a horse's leg or something like that, and what's involved there. Obviously, again, we have the preparation for the essential entrance tests for medicine, and we bring in practitioners. We have a consultant surgeon who interviews for Imperial College, who comes in and he acts terribly grumpy. So he often gives them good advice, and they come out saying that was actually a lot harder than their actual interview. And we try and get them the multi-mini interview as well, practice. We're partnering up down the road with another school. So yes, interview practice really essential for a lot of these courses. Not as many as there used to be, really, but wherever there's an interview required, we will offer to give them a practice interview. As I mentioned earlier on, then we have a colleague of mine who helps with alternatives to university. So these are really the school leaver programs, apprenticeships. A lot of them are for STEM, the science, technology, engineering and maths applicants. But not just that nowadays. The accountants do very well, the big accounting firms and the investment banks as well have excellent programs. And a lot of them will lead to the very sought after degree apprenticeships where you're working in an organisation and you will go to the local university to do a course which will help you to do your job better. And those are very sought after because the fees are paid. But if you can get on one of these summer internships, and this goes all the way through university, a lot of the big firms don't want to rely on you at interview. That's not good enough. That's too risky. But they will see you every summer for a week or maybe two and put you through assessment procedures and group work. And that's how they get to know what you're really like. And then when you relax at the end of the day and they say, the free bar is over there, guys, help yourself to gin and tonic and the vodka and tonic and everything, and the wines are all over there. And you sit next to the chairman at supper talking about Brexit. So you need to be able to resist temptation sometimes and just keep yourself sharp there for what is about to come on those internships and summer programs. The CV advice is there. We like everybody to have a good online application, a squeaky clean media presence as well. And we teach people about informational interviewing, which is a form of networking, which is a particular favourite of mine. And when it works, it's brilliant. So you can Google this. It comes from What Colour Is My Parachute, which is a self-help careers book. And basically, the idea is that young people can interview adults in employment to talk about their jobs. What is your job really like? How did you get the job? What are the promotion prospects? Where are you going to go from here? What do you spend most of your time doing when you are at work? Which are the bits that scare you? So those kind of interviews are what are the current projects you're working at? And the idea is that you turn up looking smart on the day. 9 o'clock on the Monday is the time that you've arranged. You're there early, you're at reception, and you're ready for what you've asked for, which is just 20 minutes. That's a kind of non-threatening time, isn't it? 20 minutes of time by this person in their job, and you'll find that adults love talking about their jobs. It makes them feel good. They're helping a young person through. And that's gold dust for that young person to get that inside information about what it's really like in that industry. And I say about going along to their place of work because I think that works really well. If There's a bit of that talk that really interests the pupil, and they can say, do you know of anybody who focuses on this element of civil engineering? Because that's what really interests me. And the person says, yeah, that's Johnny, just down the corridor. I'll take you down there now and introduce you. And then maybe you go for lunch. And that's fantastic networking opportunity. Some pupils do it over the phone. Some pupils actually go maybe to their parents' employment to do this. But it's a fantastic way of showing that you're doing something outside of school and pursuing your interests, your curiosity, your line of thought, which is a lovely thing for all applications, I think, to university, to show you've got that inquiring mind. So, what events do we do at Millfield? We do lots of events, I think. We do careers fairs. So in this very room, we'll have about 25 different universities in a huge wheel. We have them around the middle and around the outside with their banners, and they're selling their wares. Obviously, you have to be slightly skeptical of that sometimes, but they've got undergraduates there who will tell you the way it is. And you can ask them about your grades and your subjects and what it's really like at that school, at that university. And outside there in the hall, we'll have gap year companies and employers and other agents who can tell you other things as well. One of my favourites is a session after lunch where we have a range of different universities on a table, admissions officers representing a whole range of universities, and we take question and answer, and they're not questions which are planted with the pupils, so it can be a little bit edgy sometimes, but these are questions which they might take, well, at our university, at Cardiff Met, this is the way we do it. The way our admissions operate. And then the next person might say, well, at Imperial College, this is the way we do it. And then the next person might say, well, at Falmouth or St Andrews or wherever it is, this is how we do it. So that's a fantastic thing. The lower six go down, once they've had their practice run, talking to the universities here, they go down to the UCAS exhibition in Exeter with all the other schools. They have to get their elbows out and push their way to the front. They see what the competition looks like, and they talk to all of the universities in the UK there and lots more employers and apprenticeship companies. My favourite, however, is our OM Careers Convention. So Old Millfieldians, the alumni of the school, some of them love coming back, and they come back every year, and they're at the peak of their profession. They're the top doctors and lawyers and financiers and entrepreneurs and filmmakers, and it's fantastic to welcome them back every year, and they're just wanting to give something back because they're sitting where you're sitting. They were sitting there a long time ago, and they've progressed well. We have some young people as well as the more advanced representation from different industries, but it's lovely to see them there, and we split them up into seminars, and people get to choose from 25 or so different professions, and they're then in small groups, and they can chat to them about what their job is really like. And I think that's a great thing for young people to engage adults who are in employment about what their lives are really like, because there's fantastic nuggets of information there, and we've all followed the same paths in some ways or other and had similar experiences. And then, of course, we have the university presentations where they want to come and give a presentation about how to write a personal statement or how to apply to a competitive university. Around this time of the year, our upper six have a deadline to show their first draft of their personal statement, and that's their first deadline. And so the ones that are a little bit sluggish at doing that go along to a personal statement workshop which is hosted by a university. So that happens the week after next, and that gets them going on that. And the other events we have, of course, are the heads of all the departments at Millfield, whether it's PE or business studies or chemistry, will be inviting academics from universities to come and deliver a lecture to our students, and those academic talks are brilliant because you can say, I listened to Professor so-and-so speaking about the latest developments or his research project, and that led me to do my own research, and I follow somebody now on their blog, and that led me to give a presentation to my class on that subject, or that led me to write an article for the school magazine. So that kind of linked motivational events is a great thing to talk about either in an interview or on your personal statement for university. But subject choice is what bewilders a lot of people, as I said at the beginning. And we're a big school, so we have lots of optional subjects, as well as the less academic subjects. But these are all our A-levels and pre-U's and BTECs that we do, but there are plenty more than that. So we do try and get the pupils to do this aptitude assessments. They all sign up to it. There's one bunch in year 11, and then there's another one in the lower 6. And they result then in guidance interviews with careers professionals from outside school. And I think that's a great thing, because they're not teachers who say, oh, I saw you on the football pitch the other day, did very well, or somebody said, you didn't turn up to my detention. They're not being judged as much. They won't meet this person ever again. And they always rank it very highly to say, I really enjoyed the guidance interview, because it was half an hour or sometimes 3/4 of an hour of one-to-one chats with somebody who is a professionally trained careers advisor who can talk to them about what they really think about school, what their plans are, and that, as I say, goes through the school. So I think that's a really good thing. But obviously at Millfield there's a lot of adult contact, isn't there? Whether it's in-house or on the sports pitch or in the class or just at lunchtime or just coming to careers, they meet us. So there's a lot of interaction with staff. How do we join it all together? Well, one of the ways we join it together is to get all pupils, we've rolled it out from year 11, lower 6, upper 6, but we're going to bring it down to the lower school as well, to write about themselves on a careers form. And there's lots of prompts there to say what they're proud of doing. You know, they're proud academically, they won a prize, or they did something outside school, or they were the opening batsman in some team, or they did jolly well on a volunteering project. Because they forget these things sometimes, probably forgotten you with a pencil monitor in year 7, but if you put this down on a careers form, then those are things which you can write about and say things that you've learnt about. And it's lovely for the staff to see that as well. And they push lots of radio buttons to say, I'm quite interested in having a go at Oxbridge, or I'm curious about how to apply for medicine. And then that produces a report for us, and then we can send that pupil off to talk to the relevant staff. So this is one of the ways that we keep in touch with people, but obviously your sons and daughters are seeing the group tutors on a regular basis. So if you're at all concerned, excuse me, then the group tutor is the first port of call in terms of, could you actually get Johnny to go along to see Mr. Brittain in careers and have that chat, because I don't think he's been very engaged with the process so far. Absolutely fine. You can get in contact with us, get in contact with the group tutor, but hopefully they won't have fallen out of the net, because everything's recorded on the careers form, even down to the lectures, the voluntary lunchtime lectures that they've applied to. We keep a tally of who's been on that. And then lastly, there's a link here on the screen which you can have a look at, which if you just in fact Google UCAS personal statement video, it'll come up. It's an excellent video, and it actually just tells you a little bit about how to write about your enthusiasms. Young people find that quite hard sometimes without showing off and without hiding their light under a bushel. Where is that middle part? And I think if you looked at that video, it says it in a really nice way. It certainly went down very well with our lower 6. So have a look. Moving on then, beyond Millfield. Yeah, we have the most wonderful alumni society called the Old Millfield Society, and Nicola Pender does an excellent job working there. And recently, just in the last year or so, she's set up Millfield Connect, incredibly popular. I think she's got 1,500 OMs connected up with it so far. And basically, it is a wonderful online meeting place for people to connect around the world. Increasingly, our OMs are very international. And you can search the database by class of 2018, 17, 16, by boarding house, if you want to find out and remind yourself who is in your house, by location, where they are now, and by industry, which they're working in now. And quite often people are successful in finding a mentor for themselves, or just sharing expertise and knowledge in a particular industry. Equally, it's a great social network as well in terms of catching up with other people. And lastly, I'd like to just finish off with the fact that as far as we're concerned in careers, it doesn't stop there. When your sons and daughters leave Millfield, they may want to do a reapplication through UCAS. They are very welcome to come back to us and dust off their application form, get a bit of advice. We'll update the reference. We can advise them on, again, as we do with the upper six, their personal statement, and really advising them on their subject choice as well, like we do with the others. So that's our help with post-results applications. So, thank you very much for attending, and we'll be running this again next year, but hopefully see you in the meantime. Thanks very much.